excuse me, does it work? Does it work well? Could it work better? Could it work elsewhere? Does it work? Does it meet the functional requirements? Great. You'll probably pass. Or, if you're already out of school, you might not get fired. But what do you think of someone who only does the bare minimum? We have higher standards than that for ourselves. Next on the scale, does it work well? Is the user experience acceptable? Behold, the Norman door, named after one of the horrible devices that inspired Don Norman's classic book, The Design of Everyday Things, which I think was originally called The Psychology of Everyday Things. That door may open, so it works, right? It's not as though the door doesn't open, but the user experience is unforgivably bad. It's a dang door, and you have to write on the door how to use it. Because if you don't write push on there, everyone's going to pull. Guess what everyone does when you write push on there? They pull anyway. Terrible, terrible, terrible. So a guy had to write a dang book telling you not to do that kind of stuff. So we can take those lessons from the real world and apply them to our work here. So if you can make things that work, not only work, but work well, you'll probably get a good grade. Outside the classroom in a real job, people may like you. Yes, even you. The folks in sales and marketing, maybe even customers, they'll all sing your praises. Other developers on your team may still hate you, though. There's still work to do even after it works well. Next on the scale, could it work better? In other words, can it be maintained? You read the code a lot more than you write it. You write a given line of code once, but you're going to have to read that thing a million times. Unless it's something you did one day for a homework assignment and you never have to look at it again. But it's good to get in the habit of writing stuff that you'll be able to read later, right? So let's break down this can it be maintained level of the scale just a tiny bit. Can anyone else read it, including you in the future? Can everyone else read it? Master this, and Tony says you'll probably get a job. Outside the classroom, I'd say you'll probably get a raise. But I'll be frank, this poop's difficult. It can take longer to learn to write readable code than it takes you to learn to make things that work, or even that work well. It's kind of a lifelong pursuit, making readable, maintainable code. I've been doing this an embarrassingly long time, and sometimes it's still a serious challenge to take my code from working and working well to being readable by others. And that makes it really tempting to get lazy and just ship your code once it works well. But learn to resist that temptation, and your coworkers and your future self will thank you. Seth and I are both huge dorks on this topic. Otherwise, yeah, totally cool. But on this one topic, we're a little nerdy. It is not at all uncommon for us to be working independently on different projects or something and to just send each other a chat message and be like, how can I make this just a tiny bit more readable and that kind of stuff. Because really, have you already at this point in your young careers had an occasion where you wrote something and you look at it 3 weeks later and you're like, what on earth was I doing? Even if it worked, it's not uncommon to have no idea how it ever worked, or try to go back and add a new feature and be like, I have no idea what this crap is. It really is worth the effort to make it readable. Oh yeah, this was supposed to be the slide that I had up while I talked about the fact that when you look at it 3 weeks later, you might have no idea what you were doing. And remember, making it readable is not just for other developers, right? The developer you help may be you. So, I think we've done, does it work? Does it work well? Can it be maintained? Last point on the scale, could it work elsewhere? In other words, could it be reused? Oftentimes, the same solution can fit multiple problems with only minor variations. The ability to write code in such a way that it can be used in multiple situations is indispensable. We've kind of already seen this once. So in person stats, we had to build a list item, right? And originally we just did that inside the handle submit function. And it was very tightly coupled with the exact behavior of that app. But then we extracted it out and we saw build list item at that point. It just took a couple of strings and it could just build a list item. It didn't matter that it came from the form, didn't matter whether it was people or puppies or anything else. And now we've built a list item in this app and we used pretty much the same code, right? Now it probably wasn't work like making a library out of that tiny little thing, but it's the general principle. Even if it can't be reused, writing it in such a way that it could be if you needed to would be swell. So could it be reused? Like the super mega bonus level of this one would be, can it be packaged and shared? We often find ourselves using libraries that other people wrote. Foundation, for example. What if we wrote a library and shared it with the world? There are probably exceptions to this, but most folks who write libraries aren't doing it just for kicks. They needed to solve the underlying problem for some specific project of theirs. They just took the time to extract a general solution from their specific one. The story I like to tell about this one is a million years ago or so, we had a problem to solve on a project that we were doing. We could have just written it in such a way that it worked for that app, but the guy I was working with at the time took the time to make it reusable because it wasn't even the last time we were going to use it. So he packaged it up, made it an open source thing, and now 3 million people have used it. It was just like a one-day quick little thing, and then lots of maintenance since then. But he just took a few extra minutes to turn it into a reusable thing instead of just, writing it inside the same dang function or something. We'll talk more about that toward the end of the last week when we kind of talk about our life stories in gruesome detail. But it's worth the effort. So if you can do this, not only will you probably get a job, probably the best job. So the scale again. Does it work? Does it work well? Could it work better? Could it work elsewhere? So I'm going to be talking about specific points on this scale, especially the does it work well part, kind of as we work on the projects in class. If you get nothing else out of this for right now, just remember, once you have things working and working well, make a little extra effort to make the thing readable. It really is worth your time. And if you want to be a serious software craftsperson, that's where a lot of the effort is, and it really is worth it. And it's fun. And your peers and your future self will thank you.